In this video, I'm going to open up and talk about some of my biggest losses in trading Forex, trading stocks, and some of the biggest lessons that I have learned. So hopefully you can learn some of those mistakes before you actually make them yourself. This is going to be me opening up again about some of the biggest trades that I've taken in terms of losses, drawdowns, painful moments in my trading, and some takeaway lessons that I've learned. So stay tuned, let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nick. I talk about trading, investing, and entrepreneurship, and I try and keep it real, and that's kind of going along with this topic today. We're going to be talking about losses, which are definitely not a cool topic or a fun topic. A lot of times on Instagram and social media, you'll see a lot of traders or people who talk about trading. They'll just talk about the hype up moments. They'll talk about, doubling their account, tripling their account, paying for a new car with the money they've earned. But not a lot of people talk about losses, and I think that that is a reality for every single Forex trader. So it's important as a content creator in the space, in my view, to tell the full story about trading and talk about some of the downsides, talk about some of the negative moments that every trader, I don't care how good you are, experiences. And so today I'm going to talk about some of the biggest losses and some of the biggest moments of pain in my trading journey and some of the lessons that I have learned from it. So I think that there's a couple key trades. You kind of forget your winning trades, but there's always this strong memory for the trades that were not fun or things that you didn't want to deal with in your trading. It's kind of funny how that works, but I can remember most of my down times, but some of my worst trades were actually a series of losses. So a lot of times you hear people, taking a massive loss on an account or something like that, but there's other times where you're just caught in a funk where you just keep stopping out. And there was some times in my trading performance where some of the markets that I were trading, trying to trade a trend following concept, they kind of rely on the market to shoot and go into one direction, right? Well, if one market stays range bound for a very long time and you keep getting false breakout stopped on those sort of trades, it can result in many, many losses in a row. This is exactly one of my worst moments in trading, was when I took something like 12 or 13 losses in a row, each one amounting to 1 to 2% of my account. As you can imagine, that is not fun, and it was just a slow, painful chopping up of my account, which is never fun to experience. Now, I want to say before we get too far that just because you deal with losses does not mean that it's irrecoverable or it's the end of the world or you're just a terrible trader, because fast forward to today, I've recovered those losses and more just by sticking to the same plan. But the painful part is when you're in that moment of taking a loss, putting on a trade, taking a loss, putting on a trade, taking a loss, that gets old and it can be really psychologically difficult to handle. Have any of you guys related to this? Let me know down below in the comments before we go any further. What do you think was your worst experience in trading? And tell us a little bit about your drawdown experience. What was going through your head? Because for me, it was super painful to keep taking losses like this. But I knew that because of the strategy that I had developed and researched and done the back testing on and spent a lot of time developing, I knew that in the end, my winners should outweigh my losses. But there is a component to every strategy called drawdown, which is basically like the period of time where you just keep taking losses or you're holding on to losing trades. And they are not only expected, but they are, you can't avoid them. Every trading strategy has losing periods of time or streaks. And this is what I was going through as I was dealing with 13 losing trades in a row, which sounds ridiculous. And you might say, Nick, you're a terrible, terrible trader. But the reality is that traders, even the best ones, can go through a normal drawdown period where they take many, many losses in a row. So what did I learn from this? What was my biggest takeaway? Well, again, I mentioned that in the end, my trades started to come back. I started to gain bigger profits on some of the trades that really started to run. Specifically, I was talking about USD JPY was the chart that I kept taking losses on, and it was no fun, but eventually things started to break out, things started to trend again, and that's when I cashed out and was able to recover those losses and more on the account. So the biggest thing that I took away from this was that patience in trading is so critical. It is so imperative to trading success, because even during, again, like I said, every trader goes through drawdown. You have to be able to endure that drawdown to actually get back to the point where you're making profits, right? If your strategy is expected to deal with times that are just not fun or experiencing trades that go against you multiple in a row, you have to be able to sit through that in order to get through to the other side. And that's why I think it can kind of be tricky, is because a lot of times people get caught up in the middle of that drawdown, taking 6, 7, 8 losses in a row, and they say, man, is my strategy just not working? Do I just need to switch strategies. And I think that this is where a lot of new traders get stuck, because they jump strategy to strategy to strategy because they can't sit through the negatives. Everybody wants that upside. They want to make that money. They want to double their account and do all the fun stuff that people say on Instagram and YouTube. But every trader, whether they like it or not, will experience tough times, and your strategy will fail it will 100% fail if you cannot sit through the drawdowns and the downside when they do come. So for me, that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned was, okay, patience is not only important, but it is necessary. It is 100% needed in order to actually succeed in the end, because otherwise you'll just jump strategy to strategy, and switching strategies does not lead to consistency. How many times have you heard that trading relies on being consistent and disciplined? Well, the discipline part is sticking to your strategy even when it's hard, and the consistency part is doing things the same way and sticking to a plan through thick and thin. And so I think that that is so important. Now I'm going to talk about another loss that I dealt with, or at least a trade that was in drawdown. I didn't actually take a big loss on this account, but I did deal with a painful trade that went against me for quite some time. And I've talked about this trade before, but it was a trade on Euro Australian dollar that I took on the short side, and I accidentally, it's still my fault, but it was an accident, I took a short sell that was too big for the account, and I held onto this trade for much longer than I had hoped for or had expected. Although it still met my criteria and I never reached a max drawdown, it was still mentally very draining to deal with a trade that had gone against me for some period of time, and I had accidentally over leveraged on that account, over leveraged the position, and dealt with a losing trade that took me like 20 to 30 days to get out of, which is much longer than my average holding time for a lot of my trading strategies are usually a little bit shorter term than that. But it was a trade that was no fun to deal with, and in the end it was okay because things turned around. But it's important to note that mentally during that time, it was not easy to handle that. I realized that, okay, I had taken a trade that was too big. I was still within the technical rules for my strategy, but my risk management was off. And that was a painful lesson for me to learn, because I was sitting there with swings that were much too large in my preference for my account. So it's important, whatever you are doing when you are trading, to understand that you can stick to a trading plan, but if you don't stick to your risk management plan, that is equally as important. So when talking about losers, a loss is one thing, but a way too big loss is a whole nother story. That's way more important, and a lesson that painfully a lot of people unfortunately have to learn the hard way, because they take trades that are too big for their account, and then they have to reap the repercussions, I guess. But these are a couple losses and some things that I have learned from them. I hope that you got something out of it. Again, share your losses, your learned lessons down below in the comments. I'd love to read some from you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you back in the next video.